Hello and welcome to my show Indus Cuisine, and I'm your chef Basim Akhund. We're back with another new episode and a new recipe from the heart of Pakistan. Today's recipe is very easy and is widely consumed in Pakistan or wherever you will find Pakistanis around the world. You will know this recipe is loved by them. Today's recipe is called Aalo Gosht. A local recipe. The name is also very local and I'll decipher it for you. Aalo means potato, Gosht means meat, and this recipe came into being when Wajid Ali Shah, the famous emperor, was in exile and he came across the potatoes which the British Empire brought to Pakistan before the independence, and he told his cooks, his royal chefs of his royal kitchens in exile, that I would want something new because I do have meat every day, but I want a vegetable that should go with this. So back in the day, the cooks in the royal kitchens brought this recipe in front of him, and this was deemed fit to be a feast for the king. Around 17th century in Shah Jahanabad, the Mughal emperors back in the day came across this recipe, and what did they do? They made this recipe a part of their royal courts, and this recipe has been enjoyed over the time. This recipe is a bit close to the way nihari was made. Why? Because this recipe is cooked overnight back in the day on amber wood fire. Why? Because it has a lot of oil in it, but the oil back in the day used to come from the fat that comes from the milk, which is butter. Or otherwise, when the poor people used to cook, they couldn't afford butter or clarified butter back in the day. So what they used to do is they used to use the meat, and the animal fat when it used to melt, it used to get mixed with the meat, with the gravy, and this recipe used to come into being. It's a very easy recipe. What are the ingredients? I'll let you know. There are quite a lot of ingredients and I shall assemble them in front of you step by step. Okay, so first we'll go towards the spices, also known as the masalas in Pakistan. You need black cardamom, only one piece. Why? Because it's very strong. So we will just use a bit of it and we will mix it with it. Then you need some cloves, you need some black peppercorns. You need to use them as a whole. You don't need to crush them. Why? Because when I'll cook it in the pressure cooker, it will break down itself, and if it doesn't break down, it will be so soft because of the moisture it will absorb from the water that it will just be very soft when you bite on it, and it will give a nice perfect flavor. Then you need some coriander powder, you need some garam masala, you need some turmeric powder, red chili powder, salt to taste, around 4 to 5 green chilies. I have a bit more, but I'll keep them on the side for later. Then you want some ginger, garlic, and the new thing I'm using today in Pakistani cooking, we use mustard oil. Mustard oil is very widely used over here, and it's a very strong oil, so we do not use a lot of it, around 5 to 6 tablespoons, and a cup of ghee, which is clarified butter. So these are the things that we need in the spices and the masalas. Then what you need is, you need around 5 to 6 potatoes. You'll peel them, wash them, scrub them properly, and keep them on the side. I've put a cling wrap on the potatoes. Why? Because if the potatoes are peeled and you keep them open, what happens is it starts absorbing all the impurities and it starts getting brown. So always cover them, or if you can't cover them, you can submerge them in water also, and that way the potato won't lose its color. Then you need around 4 to 5 tomatoes, which we'll blend in the food processor, 2 onions finely chopped, which we'll brown, and that's the color which will be used in the recipe. And you need around a kg of beef. Okay, so what we will do first, we will start preparing the recipe with all the vegetables, and in the end the meat goes. Okay, so first what we need is, we need a frying pan. Make it really hot, increase the heat. I'll keep this on the side. The grill is cold, it's clean, so you can use it as a countertop also. So now what you need is, you need 2 onions finely chopped. I've kept the pan on heat, it's properly hot. What I'll do is, I'll keep it on the pilot. I won't switch the stove off. Why? Because you want it to stay warm. Okay, now I will just finely chop them. The root of the onion is on. Just cut it like this. Pass your knife through. If your knife is sharp, it's better. Why? Because then only you shall get the perfect cut. Otherwise, you cannot get a perfect cut. And if you don't get a perfect cut, you'll mess it up. So just quickly, but properly. Keep the root on the side. I'm using 2 onions and a kg of beef. Remember that. But what I'll do right now is, I shall just use 1.5 onions. Why? I'll let you know why. Because you need to improvise. At times the onions are bigger than usual when you're buying them, or at times if they're small. So you just improvise and use something close to 2 medium onions. So basically, whenever you're buying an onion and you hear that a recipe calls for, you can say, 2 onions, how do you measure it? Mentally. So a normal medium onion, when you chop it, would equal to 1 cup. So that's what you need to think. Whenever a recipe says 1 onion, it's 1 cup. Or if you hear 1 cup written somewhere, just imagine it's 1 medium onion you need to use. Okay, so now firstly what we'll do is I'll use a clarified butter. That goes in. So if you cook this recipe on the stove without a pressure cooker, it will take 4 hours. Why? Because the meat will take time to get soft, to get properly cooked. If you use a pressure cooker, you just need to cook the beef for around 25 to 30 minutes, which we'll do later on, and then you can have your recipe which is ready. Now you need some mustard oil. It smells amazing. You'll try it and you'll love it. Small things in Pakistan take you a very long way, remember that. Now just mix it. The mustard oil also gives this recipe its nice distinctive color. Remember that. Why? Because mustard oil is dark yellow, and otherwise if you use butter, clarified butter or oil or any other forms of oil, it's different. And also the second thing is that the flavor of mustard oil cannot be compared with any other oil. I'll give you a very small example. Whenever you're talking about Sri Lankan cooking, they use a lot of coconut oil, if I'm not wrong. And whenever you use coconut oil, you cannot get that flavor of that recipe from the substitute oils which are available in the market. Okay, anyway, so now you can see the bubbles are also yellow. This is nice mustard oil. Add around half a teaspoon of salt, not too much. Increase the heat, move it around. And give it a lid for around 2 minutes to cook. So I'll just press the onions down, submerge it, mix it a bit more, and give it a lid. Now the lid is on, let it cook for, let's say, 2 minutes on medium heat. Why? Because you want to make them translucent, and once they're translucent, you'll make them brown. Remember, translucent and then brown, just don't jump quickly to making them brown. Why? Because they'll get burnt from the outside and it will be raw from the inside, which will ruin the whole texture of the recipe. So till the time this is cooking, what we'll do is we shall use some garlic and ginger. I'll take around 8 cloves of garlic and I'll shred them. Why? Because this recipe has a kg of beef. I'm using beef boneless. It's from the leg of the animal. If you want to use meat with the bone also, you could do that even, but I prefer this recipe without the bone. Some people do, but it depends on what you want. The remaining part of the garlic goes into the dustbin. Why? Because this is the end part. It gets very dangerous if you go close to the blade. We have the garlic. Now we need the ginger. Not so much, around a tablespoon. So this would suffice as a tablespoon. Start shredding it. Always rotate the piece of ginger if you can't shred it properly. Why? Because I'll tell you, and I'll show it to you basically today. So if you look closely, what's happening is the ginger is shredding, but you can see these threads at the back. These are the threads that hold the ginger together. So at times when you're passing it through the grinder or the shredder, it doesn't slip properly, it doesn't cut properly. So keep changing the angle rather than forcing your way through and making it slip and cutting your hand. This is done. Just pass your hand from here. You'll see some more ginger on the side. The root goes over here, basically the threads of the ginger, and I don't need this anymore. And what you'll do now is you should start continuing with the recipe. I'll just rinse my hands once and dry them off. Clean the blade of the knife, my hands are clean. And now increase the heat and cook the onions for a minute. Why? Because you want the flavor to come out. Okay, so now this is done. The next step, add some spices. First we shall add the black cardamom. What will happen when you add it in the mustard oil and the ghee, which is also known as the clarified butter, the flavor shall split and you will love it. Then you shall add some turmeric. Add some red chilies. I'm spreading it out. As you can see, I'm not like making it at one side. There's no clutter over here. Then the second thing you need is coriander powder. I'm frying the spices in the oil, in the ghee. Then you need some cloves, increases the flavor. And then you need some black pepper, which will go over here on this side. Just move it a bit, not too much, and start mixing it now. Now what will happen is the onions will start absorbing it and you'll get that nice flavor. Okay, now let it cook for 30 seconds. The second thing you need to do is you need to add these spices into this. Okay, so first the ginger goes in, then the garlic goes in. Mix it up properly. Spread it out and let it cook for 30 seconds. You can see the color is changing of the dish. Now I'll reduce the heat and I'll do something else. Reduce the heat, pick up a fresh bowl which is over here, and this goes here. Okay, now the next step. Reduce the heat to completely low. Pick this up and transfer this into this. This is done. Now what you need to do is take it and blend it over here, which I'll do it in a second. So as you can see, I've taken out all the things I was frying in the clarified butter and the mustard oil. Now what will happen is I shall shift this to the blender. Why? Because I want to convert it into a nice fine paste. So this goes here. And convert it into a paste. I'll keep this over here again. And just whenever something's hot, take a piece of cloth, place it on top. Your safety comes first, and then do it. This is done. Now you should transfer this. Oh, smell the goodness out of it. Put the heat back on, and this goes here. Reduce the heat to medium-low. Take the spatula and take as much as you can out from the jug. Do not waste it. Shake it, and now what happened? When you were blending it in the jug, what happened was the oil mixed with all the ingredients and it was sucked into it. So now you will cook it so that the oil is released again, and then we can add the tomatoes. Do not wash this. I'm not telling you to be dirty, but I'm telling you to reserve and preserve these flavors. So reduce the heat, give it a lid, let the spices cook, and now take this back over here. You do not need this anymore. Put this at the back. And now the tomatoes come in. You need around 4 to 5 tomatoes. I'll be using 5. Why? Because 2 or 3 tomatoes are small and you want them to be equal in size. So just take the eye of the tomato out. I'm cutting a bit more. Why? Because I want the tender part, the center part of the tomatoes. Keep this on the side. Just cut them into half. No hassle, nothing doing. And take this part, and there we go. Now transfer all the tomatoes over here. 1, 2, 3. And because 2 are small, so I'll consider them as 4. And give it a lid and process them again. This is done. Now just take the lid and keep it on the side. And you want all this tomato to go over here. Transfer it. Take the spatula. Scoop it. Pull it out. And keep the spatula on the side. And try not throwing the jug in the sink. Why? Because if you drop something on it, you crack this beautiful thing. It shall go to waste, and all these machines, these equipments are very expensive. You need to take care of them. Why? Because the life of these things go up to 6 to 7 years. it's not right to just let them go to waste by breaking them down in a year or so. Why? Because whenever you're cooking, whenever you're a chef, be careful of the things you're using in the kitchen. So keep it on the side and now mix it again. So what you need to do is increase the heat and start mixing it. Now, because the tomatoes were raw, they're not cooked, what I'll do is once I mix it, the oil will be integrated, the masala will be integrated, and then I shall give it a lid. Reduce the heat, scoop it in like this, just push the edges in the middle, place the lid on top, reduce the heat to low, and now you should let the tomatoes cook for 5 minutes. Why? Because when the oil will come up, it will start frying, and that's what you need. Till the time this is cooking, we'll go for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching Indus Cuisine. Welcome back. You're watching Indus Cuisine and I'm your chef Basim Akhund. During the break, I just did one thing. I waited for you. And the other thing was I just cleaned up a bit. And as you can see over here, if you can zoom in, the oil is up, the bubbles are coming, and it has split. This is what I wanted. Now what you'll do is give it a lid, pick it up, and push it on the side. Okay, just see one thing. You need to see that you need to mix it again. Why? Because you don't want it to stick at the bottom. You've put a lot of hard work, love into this recipe, so might as well just be a bit more careful. So we have the sauce over here. Now what will we do? I shall sear the potatoes. You've heard searing of meat. We shall sear the potatoes. Why? Because I want the potatoes to get its flavor, interlock its flavor inside, okay? So here we have the potatoes. What I'll do is I shall just cut them. I've peeled them already because I won't start peeling them in front of you. It will take a lot of time and then you'll get really bored. And now cut them into pieces. 1-inch pieces, not too big, not too small. And why am I cutting them like this? Why? Because this will go into the gravy and you want it to fry first. Why? Because we will sear them like we sear the meat. This is done. So now you'll take a fresh wok, place it over here, increase the heat to full. This lid doesn't belong to this wok, but I'll keep it over here. And then you need some clarified butter just for frying. So remember, you need your pan to be really hot, no water, and then add the butter or oil or clarified butter. Why? Because you don't want it to splash all over you. If it splashes over you, you're hurting yourself. Okay, so this is done. The pan is hot now. I'll just add some clarified butter to fry it, the potatoes, but not fully fry them. You need to fry them 80%. Remember that. Okay, so once this comes to heat, I'll add them and I'll give it a nice toss in it. And on the other hand, what I'll do is I'll start preparing the meat also once these are in there. Okay, the oil has come to heat. Add the potatoes. And when you're cooking these, keep shaking them, keep moving them, okay? So now, add a bit of salt, around a 1/4 teaspoon, spread it out. Toss them. And now just try one thing, that they don't stick to each other. You need to give it a bit of oil and let it cook on low heat for some time. Okay, what I'll do is I'll shift this over here. Why? I'll tell you. This goes here, this comes here. I shall switch the heat on over here to medium, not too high, not too low. And I'll let it fry lightly. You can see I'm just shallow frying it, not too much. Give it a lid. I can shift the lid, it's completely fine. And put this stove off now. Why? Why? Because you need to start getting ready with the meat. I'll pick this up and I'll bring a new board and I'll keep it here. Never mix the boards. Cross-contamination will lead to a lot of problems in your life, health-wise. You know, at times when you eat out, you're like, dude, I don't feel good. I mean, my day is going really bad. You're having these difficult pains in your stomach. Why? It's because of cross-contamination. What happens is people mix the vegetable board with the raw meat board, and when they cook it, the bacteria is transferred, and that's called cross-contamination, and you fall sick. Okay, just keep shaking this. And now you need meat. It's 1 kg. What I'll do is I'll just cut it a bit, not too much. Puncture it. You don't want to cut the whole meat and ruin it. Take the cling wrap off, and we'll prepare the meat now. It's red. Why? Because it's meat. So now what you need to do is just feel the meat first. As you can see, this part of the meat can be taken out just by pushing it. I'm not even cutting it with a knife. You can see it. I'm just pushing it. I'm pushing it through the muscle, and I'm going to take it out like this. So there's one piece, there's the other piece, and now you need to cut it down. I'll use this knife only, and then I'll wash it later on. Keep an eye on the potatoes. They're frying. Let them fry slowly and gradually. The fat stays. It's flavor. So this small piece is here, so I'll just take it off. Okay, now just cut it. Always keep your knife really sharp, so just like pass it through the blade once. Keep it here. And make 1-inch pieces, remember that. So it's a piece which is a bit flat, but it's almost 1 inch by 1 inch. You can see this. Slowly and gradually. Don't rush when you're cutting meat. You need to go with the thread of the meat. See the fat, cut along it, and you'll have the best recipe possible in front of you. Okay, as you can see, this is really thick, this part of the fat. So I'll keep this on the side. You can use it later on in any other recipe. So I shall keep it back in the meat bowl. So as you can see, the beef is over here. It's properly cut in 1-inch pieces. The sauce over here is also ready, and the potatoes over here have also cooked down to 80%. They have a nice brown skin. What I'll do is I'll let this be over here, shift this on the side, and now you need a new pressure cooker. The pressure cooker is over here. Pick it up, place it here, and now add the goodness. Okay, so take the lid off. Firstly, what you'll do is you'll transfer all of this into this. Let's do it like this, basically. So all the flavor goes in. Just shake it a bit. Do not waste it. Move it and keep this on the side over here. Now what you need to do is increase the heat. The heat is up. I shall add the beef into this and let it sear for around 1 minute. Not searing it basically, but cooking it in the sauce for right now. Why? Because you shall add some water into it. The beef goes in. This goes on the side, and start mixing it. So pick it up and just mix it and coat the beef. On high heat, remember this. This is done. Now what you need to do is you need to add the yogurt. The yogurt's here. I'll pick it up, cut it, take the cling wrap off, and just transfer it over here. Goes in. This goes on the side. Mix it up again. And now add some water around 750 ml. That's it. Not too much, not too less. Mix it up. You want the gravy to mix up and get diluted. Remember that. Do not leave it very thick at the bottom. Place the lid on top. And let it cook for around 25 minutes once the whistle starts blowing. So till the time this is cooking, what we'll do, we'll start cleaning up everything, and once we're done, we'll come and show you and dish it out. And in the end, the potatoes go in. Do not add the potatoes right now. You know what will happen. You'll overcook them and they'll start falling apart. They'll start breaking out. So add them in the gravy towards the end, cook it for 2 minutes, and it's ready. So the pressure cooker has been used completely, and as you can see, I took all the ingredients, all the gravy out, and I poured it over here. Now what you need to do is you need to see another thing. The potatoes have been seared nicely. I fried them only 80%. So what I'll do is I'll reduce the heat over here. I'm letting it cook. Why? Because now you have to cook it for another 3 minutes on high heat so that the potato gets really soft from within. So I'll toss this in. The potatoes go in slowly and gradually. Keep this on the side. And now take around 4 green chilies which have been slit. I've cut them in half. Add it here. And in the end, take some garam masala, about half a teaspoon. Spread it out. And mix it up properly. So just mix it up. Why am I adding the garam masala in the end? Now you would be thinking, garam masala is very strong. In some recipes you add it in the beginning, but in most of the Pakistani recipes you add the garam masala towards the end. Why? Because you only cook it for 3 to 4 minutes. In some recipes, why? Because you do not want it to overpower all the other spices. So just mix it up properly, give it a lid, and now let it cook for 3 minutes on high heat. So till the time this is cooking, what we'll do, we'll prepare the dish out process and I'll show you the final look. So as you can see, the final recipe is done. I've dished it out. I've cooked for around 8 to 10 people. Why? Because I've made a kg of boneless beef and it goes with naan bread or pita bread if you like. You can see there's a lot of gravy and potatoes and beef over here also, and the remaining I've dished out over here. I hope you liked today's episode. I'll see you in another episode of Indus Cuisine. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.